Hey everybody, welcome to Photography Schoolhouse. I'm Kerry Allen, and today I want to talk about outdoor fill flash because it is one of the popular questions that seem to come up all the time. So I'm Kerry Allen. If you don't know me, I've been doing Photography Schoolhouse for quite over a decade now. We like to do these tutorials, and we've just recently started putting them on YouTube for everybody to enjoy. So like I said, I want to talk about outdoor fill flash, and it's kind of a complex subject if you really get into the nitty gritty. But I have what I think is a pretty simple, straightforward solution to getting great outdoor shots, and I'm talking things like family portraits or people pictures more so. That I'm not talking about, you're not going to use fill flash on landscapes or something. And that's typically done with either a simple on-camera flash or an off-camera flash manual or an off-camera flash TTL. At least those are the things we're going to look at today. Now, the simple way, the easy way, is the on-camera flash. Stick your camera or flash on your camera, take a picture. Everything's pretty automated today in most camera models, so before you know it, you've got a picture. It's not the best picture in the world, but it's a picture and it's probably acceptable. However, for those of us that are professional photographers, we make our living from photography, or for those of you who want to become professional photographers, you can't make money as a photographer doing the same thing that everybody else does. Your photography has to look better. So if you just stick your flash on a camera, take a picture, you're just putting yourself in with all the amateurs who bought a camera last week and are at a wedding taking pictures today. So we're going to look at ways of doing it better. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is choosing locations. This is really important. I really hate things like bald skies. I see this all the time, and I don't understand why people do it. They post pictures with these bald white skies. They love them. I hate them. Anyways, I don't like that look. It's wrong on a number of levels. So what is a good background then? Where do we find them? The first thing we want to look for is open shade. And in this situation, this graphic, that's my tree. We have the sun coming through the tree, and it's throwing little spots, dapples of light all over the subject. This is a really tough situation to fix. It looks terrible, and really you can't fix it anyway. You can't fix it with an on-camera flash. Let me show you a picture that shows this. So this is light filtering through a tree falling on the wedding party. And there's, like I said, from this standpoint, this picture is just ruined. There's nothing you can do about it. You can't add a fill flash because remember, flash or light is additive. So you put a fill flash on, it fills in the shadows a little bit, but it also adds brightness to the bright spot. So you wind up right back in the same place at a different exposure. The only solution to this is not to do it at all. So for that reason, we like to have the subject's back to the camera, and that means the camera's looking into the sun. This creates some problems, so I always use a lens shade, and sometimes that's not enough. I have to use my hand or get my assistant to cup their hands to stop the lens or the sun from flaring the lens. But ignoring that, this is where you get really bad images with bald sky. When you've got a sparse background, although the subject back is turned to the sun, the sky in the back just blows right out. Let me show you an example like this. There's nothing to block the background. You're seeing this bald white sky, and it's unattractive. Don't let anybody ever tell you that this is the way it should be done. Not only do we have this unattractive background, but because it's so bright, it's actually desaturating our entire image. You see how flat looking the image is. That's because all this light is coming into the lens, bouncing around in the lens elements, bouncing around in the camera body, desaturating everything it can find. It's just a really bad choice. So, some people have been told, I've heard this numerous times, and it kind of surprises me, face your subjects into the sun. This is another no-win situation. If they're straight into the sun, they're going to be squinting. Their face is going to be all screwed up. They're probably overheating. Remember, I shoot in Arizona a lot, and you get already a warm environment, and now you're standing them in the bright, direct sunlight. They'll start perspiring in no time at all. And you can't just turn them so the sun's at one side or the other, because you're going to put half their face in brilliant sunlight, half their face in deep, deep shadow. Contrast ratio of who knows what, 12 to 1 or something like that. Generally a totally unacceptable thing. And so again, looking into the sun is just an absolute no-win. So when we talk about adding fill flash, and there's another picture I hate, this is the on-camera look. This is the flash on the camera. You can see the reflection in the guy's glasses at the back, and the rest of them just have that deer caught in the headlights look. The background choice by the photographer is terrible. This white thing coming down, reflecting the lights, totally distracting. And the rest of the background is just flat and unattractive. I mean, this was probably really easy to fix, but the photographer didn't think about it. And this on-camera flash, you can see that it's on camera, because number one, because of the brightness of their faces. But if you look carefully into the catch lights in their eyes, you can see that this was just not somebody who put any effort into their photography at all. So what do I like with backgrounds? I like my backgrounds with lots of detail and varying light. So you do see one or two areas where the light is really, really bright and there's a little bit of sky. And I don't care, because it's not a great part of the picture. It's not a significant part of the background. So we've got some nice trees in the background. What I really like about this kind of thing, if you can find it, is the leaves of the trees are all different brightnesses and colors. Different colors, particularly in the fall, if you can get them. But you see some dark greens and some light greens and some lime greens and everything else. And because the sun is at their back, just the sun is coming through the trees acting as a hair light. You can see it on the bride and the girl next to her. It's a little bit hot on the blonde hair, but that's okay. I mean, they love the picture anyways. And this is with an off-camera flash, just filling in to brighten up their faces again. Very gentle. It's about a 3-to-1 lighting ratio for portraiture. Here it is again in a closer up portrait. You can see the reflections in the subject's eyes. A bright patch here, we don't care, because the rest of the background is nicely filled in. A nice out of focus background, so you can't, if you stare at it, you can figure it out, but it just makes for a pleasant backdrop. Off-camera flash, 3-to-1 portrait ratio, 3-to-1 lighting ratio for portraits, I mean. So, when you have off-camera flash instead of on-camera flash, you're going to be adding significant contouring to the face. Rather than just the flat light that we saw before, you're going to do it just like we do in the portrait studio. And 3-to-1 is a very subtle, but a good enough outdoor portrait lighting ratio to give you really good results, consistently good results. So how do we get that? Well, let's take a look at the diagram. So when I'm sizing up a location, I find a location where the sun is going to be at the subject's backs and the background is filled in to the point where I don't have bald white sky. Then I take my camera, pointed at the background, not on the subject, pointed at the background. And I try and make sure that the background is either plus or minus 1 stop from the ambient exposure. So the first thing I do is measure the background. Let's say for argument's sake that the background is f8 or f4. Anywhere from f4 to f8 in this example would be plus or minus 1 stop. So using an incident light meter, metering the available light striking the subject's faces, and that came in at 5.6, f5.6. So that's essentially the light, the base light that we're going to turn into a fill light instead of a key light. And we're going to do that by putting an off-camera flash. So this manual flash over here, I didn't put the stand in, so it's on a stand and it's up tall. It's on a radio slave to the camera, and we balance that for f5.6 as well. But it's coming in at an angle. This angle can be up to 45 degrees from the camera axis and up to 45 degrees coming down to the subjects. So on one side of their faces, f5.6 from the ambient light plus f5.6 from the manual flash is going to equal f8. So if it's f8 on the bright side of their face and f5.6 on the shadow side of their face, we're going to have a beautiful 3-to-1 lighting ratio. Now in digital, how to expose this scene properly is a bit of a debate, but I still abide by the rule of expose for the highlights. In digital photography, it's less important now than it used to be. When I started using digital cameras 16 years ago, 15 years ago, you had a very narrow dynamic range, like half a stop. So you really had to expose for the highlights or you were in big trouble. Cameras today are a little bit better than that, but it's still a good practice to expose for the highlights to make sure that nothing's blown out. And I'm talking about the highlights of the subject. So the highlight of the subject, not the background, is going to be f8. So in theory, I should put my camera for f8 to expose for the highlights and let the shadows fall into place. In reality, that's the math of all of this. But in reality, the math doesn't always work out exactly like that. So I'm saying my camera is probably going to be somewhere between 5, 6, and 8. I'm looking, when I shoot, I check the histogram and just make sure that nothing's blowing out on the bright side and dropping off the dark side. But the point being, your camera setting is going to be brighter than the ambient light. And that gets you reliable, good fill flash every single time, whether it's a single person, a couple, a family, small groups. Now, if we are talking large groups, like 20, 30, 40 people, don't use this technique. There, I'm worried about, I still put their backs to the sun, but now I've got a lot of faces to fill in with flash, and I'd be tempted to go to stronger flash on umbrellas to get a nice even lighting from one side of the group to the other. But the lighting principle remains the same. So I might have one umbrella flash up here, same thing, and then another one stationed on the other side of the camera, just so the entire group is nicely lit. And you still do the same. The lighting ratios are still the same as you were doing it here. In other words, we're trying for a 3-to-1 lighting ratio on the entire group. So when we put our flash on camera, we get that horrible deer caught in the headlights look. We don't have any contouring because it's equal light on both sides of their face. The light's probably going to be overexposed. So here's the same scenario except on camera flash. So if the ambient light is 5.6 again, there's a mistake in this slide. Shade side of subject is the ambient light. That F8, this comment should have come out of there. The ambient light is at 5.6. And we've set the flash for 5.6, but it's sitting on top of the camera, so we got F8 lighting their faces, which means you'd have to set the camera for F8. Now, how do you do that if we're talking manual flash, not the TTL flashes? I'm going to get to that in a second. It's simply a matter of adjusting your flash till you get 5.6 out of it, and your camera set to f8. It's pretty simple with manual flash, although this is still a look that I would urge you not to do unless you're really up against it. So most flashes have this ability to look at, or to adjust the flash, up or down. I make good use of that all the time. Every picture might be subtly different. And shooting weddings particularly, you may find that you're in multiple lighting situations and they change quickly. So I'm forever adjusting the power and intensity of my flash, particularly if it's getting ETL information or ETTL information from the camera. So let's talk about TTL for a minute. TTL has been around forever. It's through the lens metering. Canon has an ETTL, they call it, and Nikon, I believe, is ITTL. I'm not sure about all the other brands, but they all impose their own rules on how TTL works. I'm going to give you Canon as an example. So, and they now have an ETTL2, and I'm going to explain the difference between those two. When you press the button and you're communicating to an ETTL flash, in a microsecond, the camera actually takes an ambient light meter reading. So it's using the in-camera meter to figure out what the ambient light is based on the center spot of your focusing. And this Canon is presumed that your center spot is going to be the main subject that you want to expose for. So it reads the main subject and says, that's f5.6, hopefully just like our incident light meter did. But then the question is, what Canon says in their documentation is it takes this ambient light reading for proper exposure, for correct exposure. It never does say what it's communicating to the flash. So this is where it gets a little nebulous. If it took this reading and got a 5.6, I presume it would send a 5.6 to the TTL flash. And 5.6 is going to be f8, which is where we set our camera. But if the camera set at f8, it's not going to send a 5.6 to the flash, it's going to send an 8 to the flash. And that's going to ruin the exposure again. f8 plus a 5.6 is somewhere between 8 and 11. So no matter what you do, you're wrong. So about the only way I can see of doing something like this is you would actually have to set your camera for f8 and use the flash intensity buttons on the flash itself to compensate by one stop. So that's a lot of thinking and calculating, particularly when you're in a rush. But what I also want to do before, we have a video to show of a shoot we did a couple of days ago in the park with a family where we demonstrate these principles. Well, not the principles of ETTL, we demonstrate the principles of doing outdoor fill flash with a manual flash unit. So I want to answer the question, what is correct exposure? Now, many of you may know this already, but for the benefit of those who don't, years ago, the photographic industry figured out that if you could average the reflectance value of everything in the planet, you get an 18% on average. So ever since then, light meters have been based on the concept of 18% neutral gray, is what they're trying to measure. So in this case, the light from the sun falls on the subject. That light bounces back into the camera, and the meter in the camera is trying to take that light and make it 18% neutral gray. It's assuming. Now, this isn't always going to work out. This is the same whether you have an in-camera meter or a handheld meter. If you're measuring the light coming back from the subject, there's a real potential for error here. And the best example I can think of is imagine a bride and groom, bride in a white dress, groom in a black tuxedo, just to give us a real example of contrast. If you point your center spot of the camera on the groom in the black tuxedo, what is the camera doing? It's trying to make the black tuxedo look 18% neutral gray. Same thing with the bride. What's it doing to the white wedding dress? Trying to make it 18% neutral gray. So either of those exposures are wrong. The truth is somewhere in between them. Now, if you know that and you're using your brain while you're shooting, you can compensate. Most cameras have a little adjustment on it where you can compensate, override the light meter and force it to go down a quarter stop or open up, you know what I mean, just adjust the exposure. And it takes some thinking. You got to think about every single time you click the button, but that's the job. So in comes the incident light meter. The incident light meter is not designed to take reflected light from the subject. It's designed to measure the light falling on the subject. So that white bulb on the meter is pointed towards the source of light, the sun in this case, and it just tells you where 18% neutral gray is. It doesn't care what the subject's wearing, white wedding dress, black tuxedo, it doesn't care. It'll tell you where to set your camera. You set your camera for that, and you'll get a beautifully exposed picture. They're far more accurate than any reflected meter, no matter how sophisticated they try and make it. Plus, if you want to measure flash, incident meters are the only one that can measure flash as well. So it's always about finding this true reading of 18% neutral gray. There are some other devices, if you don't own a flash meter. There's gray cards at every camera store. You can take it along with you, put it in your camera bag, take it to every location, and every time you change light, you check the gray card to see that your exposure is set right. There are also these calibration targets, black, 18% gray, and white. You can shoot that, look at your histogram to make sure you see 3 distinct peaks on your histogram. Any of those things are all good. It helps you get really nice exposures, perfect exposures, and then using the off-camera manual flash technique, we can get that beautiful portrait look in outdoor shots instead of the deer caught in the headlight look. So I'm going to roll the video now. This is actually on location with a family in the park. You're going to see this in action. Hey everybody, welcome back to Photography Schoolhouse, and today we're out in the park with our family, Shayna, who you've met before in many of our Photography Schoolhouse productions, and her whole family, Adam, Cameron, and Harmony. Sorry Harmony, I forgot your name. And we're going to talk about a method of fill flash. And no matter what I do, because there's probably 15 different ways of doing this, somebody's going to disagree, and that's fine. If they've got another way that works for them, that's okay too. But I want to tell you why I shoot this way and the logic behind it. This will give you incredibly sharp, detailed pictures. And obviously that's what we want. So the kind of day, first of all, we're kind of partly cloudy. And that's a bit of an exposure issue because the sun's going to come in and out, the brightness level is going to change, but that's life. Now what I do like to do is I'm going to meter wherever I position them. I'm going to find a background that looks really nice. And one of the things I don't like about backgrounds is if you catch a bit of sky and it turns bald white. I really hate that look. I know many photographers publish pictures with this bald white sky. I always wonder why they do that, but apparently some people like it, just not my personal choice. So I'm looking for a way of kind of blocking the sky out of the picture, get some nice foliage or something like that. We're also going to do some urban grunge a little later on, some old buildings and brick. So I put their backs to the sun. This is very, very important in outdoor photography. If you put them in shade, but the sun is facing them, so that little spots of light are coming through and falling on them,
you get this really bad looking picture. And there's no way of fixing it. It's just bad. So the sun always to their back, using the sun, if you have it, as a hair accent light. Then, of course, that's going to throw their faces and bodies into shadow. We need to deal with that. And Shayna, could I have you for a second?
Yeah.
Now imagine we were shooting right here. In the background, white concrete building. Not going to look very good. So we're going to move around this way. The camera comes over here. Now imagine we're shooting Shayna going down this way into those trees in the background. What I'm going to do is two things. First thing I'm going to do is meter the background. And it's saying roughly f5, 4.5 in the background. So what I hope is where she's standing is going to be roughly the same. It's a little bit brighter, so that's fine. The background's going to go a third of a stop darker than the ambient light. So what we do have, however, is flat light. She's standing in shade. So that doesn't look very good. In the studio, when we do portraiture, we're always looking for lighting ratios. So we like maybe 2:1, 3:1, 4:1, meaning one side of the light is brighter than the other. If not, you just get this bland kind of flat look. So I like to do that with fill flash. So, and I use manual off-camera fill flash. So if I put a flash off to the side and I have her turn towards me a little bit, then if I set the flash for the same power as Shayna, that f4.9, let's call it f5, and set this for f5, it's going to add light. So it's going to double the light, but only on one side of her face. So the other side of her face is going to be filled by the open shade. So if we, as you know, light is additive. So if we add 1 unit of light to another unit of light, we get a 2:1 lighting ratio. Plus, with the camera being off center, we're going to get that look. I could do the same thing with an on-camera flash, you'd think, but the on-camera is going to be just the same all over her face. We don't get the modeling that we really like. So putting the flash rather, off camera, I think is really important to nice outdoor portraiture. I use this for an individual, a couple, or families. Same procedure. Some people like a softbox. Out and power it with something outdoors. I don't like that because we already have soft light. I don't need to add more soft light. In fact, if anything, on an overcast day, it would be so soft it would be unattractive. So using the flash open without a softener sharpens the picture back up. So that's the strategy behind this. And she's got 2 young kids who are playing in the dirt.
Get up, please. Come here.
And right now we're overcast. I'm sure the sun's going to pop out at some point. So guys, come on over here, just by this tree. I don't want to miss these orange garbage bags. And maybe a little bit higher up the hill this way. Only when this looks like it's looking right at you. Somewhere there? Okay, that should be good. Just going to take a test shot. Of course, right now the sun comes out. So that's not going to work. We need you in more shade. So step back into this shade over here. Okay, let's try it there. Except we've got a spot of sun right on the side of your face. We'll get it off. There we go. Okay, guys. I'm going to get down lower for this, actually. So, now, Shayna, if you stood a little bit more out to the side, hold Harmony's hand. And then Adam, if you did that, and we'll get the little guy to move in closer to his sister. Here we go. Hey guys, everyone look up. The sun is really misbehaving for us, so I need you back even more. You'll see how I was getting kind of that splotchy look. Okay, this is it. We're all good. Say Pokemon. Who's his favorite guy? Are you a Spider-Man kind of guy? Yeah. Okay guys, look in. Nice smiles. Okay, Shayna, just put your hand around Harmony's shoulder. Yeah, like that. Okay, I'm going to change locations. I'm going to put you on the red bench right over there. I'm not going to get you sitting. Cameron's going to stand. I'd like him to hold in the corner, holding on to the back. No, if he stands on the seat.
Oh, stand on the seat?
Yep. Now let's bring him up in height a little bit. There you go. And then Harmony, can you hop up behind your brother? And now, Adam, what I'm going to get you to do, you're going to go back a little bit and put one foot up just on the corner or edge of the bench. Maybe the other foot, I think, would be better. And then Shayna, you're going to sit in that spot right there.
Right here?
Yeah, and twist back to the camera. Okay. So Adam, I got to get you in closer somehow. So also what you're going to do is just kind of bend at the waist a little bit. You got to lean into the shot. Okay, Harmony? Oh, good, smile. You're doing so well. Be happy, Harmony. Cheese. Harmony. Cheese. That's a nice shot. One more time. Okay, I think we got that. We're going to move on down by the flower garden part. So we found a little rocker boat the camera can play in, and we're standing with the sun facing me so that the sun can be to his back and come in with some fill flash on the stand. And I want to be down lower, so that's why I'm stationed at the bottom of the hill. Cheese. Is there enough room for Harmony to get on with them?
Go try and get on. Harmony's going to go on with you for a picture, okay?
Okay guys, look over here. Hey Harmony. Alrighty. Nice. Let's go over to the slide. So we're here at the slide. We've got Cameron and Harmony in position at the top. Now they're in full shade. And we need to bring, is there enough room for Cameron to squeeze in there?
Can go beside her. Don't slide. Stay right there.
Okay. Cheese.
Smile, sis. Smile. Smile.
Okay. Mom and Dad's going to come up, stand behind them.
Stay right there. Stay there.
Yep.
Stay right there. Yep. We're gonna take a couple pictures.
Now I need you to come as close to that orange bar as you can. Okay, Shayna, come a little closer to Adam. Maybe pull the arms in towards you a little bit. Cheese. Check what we got. These are nice. Nice. So a basic same thing. Got the camera or the flash off camera angle, balancing in the ambient light. Okay, just an alternate location, but the same strategy. I was attracted to this because of those shrubs in the background and the way the light's hitting them. Makes for a nice, attractive background. Take a test shot. Looks pretty good. Hands down, Cameron. Cheese. So I'm watching the moving cars in the background and shooting in between them. Okay, guys. Hands down, Cameron. Adam, a little turn towards Shayna. Yep, just shuffle your feet. That's good.
Put your hands down.
All righty. You get a break, man. But you've launched your modeling career. Harmony, say princess.
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. Now comes Spider-Man.
Stop moving.
Turn a little bit more this way like you're trying to look at the parking lot. Now just turn your head back to me. Nice. You're going to be a model too, right? That's good. Got that. Alrighty, stay there. Shayna, come over and join him. Just come up on this side. One hand up on his shoulder. No, the other side. One hand up on his shoulder. The other hand just on his tattoo. And then up on tippy toes, maybe. And lean right into him. Lean in, a little smile. Like that. Beautiful. Good. Adam, just lay your back. Lay back on the tree with your back. But come this way a little bit. And then Shayna, just come up on his shoulder. One hand just up again, leaning on him. And then just lean forward a little bit. I'm going to try and keep the wind out of your eyes. Okay, guys. Cameron. Hey, man. Almost done. Cheese. Aw, Cameron. Say ice cream. That worked. Harmony. Alrighty, we're going to move. We're heading around the corner. Shayna, you're leaning back on the wall, 1 foot on the wall. Kids in between. Okay. Nice and tall, Cameron. Maybe bring your arm behind him. He's kind of hiding behind you.
Cameron, just this last one.
Last picture. Ice cream. Cameron. We got it. We got it.